Commander Vexall adjusted his ceremonial combat harness as the transport ship Apex Wanderer entered Earth's atmosphere. Through the viewport, the third planet from this yellow star looked deceptively peaceful, swirling white clouds over blue oceans, green land masses that seemed to pulse with life. The Zephyrian Collective had conquered 40,000 worlds, survived the methane hurricanes of Korath Prime, and established colonies in the plasma storms surrounding neutron stars. This little blue marble should be a vacation. Broadcasting. To all channels, announced Lieutenant Crete H., her chitinous fingers dancing across the communication array. 40 billion viewers across the galaxy are tuned in for easy mode, surviving a primitive world. Vexall's 4 eyes gleamed with practiced confidence as he faced the recording drone. Citizens of the Collective, today we prove that adaptation is the hallmark of superior evolution. Our team has survived the acid rain of Melker, the gravity wells of Titan Station, and the crystalline mazes where silicon-based predators hunt in dimensions we can barely perceive. This Earth, with its moderate gravity, breathable atmosphere, and primitive life forms, will be our simplest conquest yet. The team consisted of 5 elite specialists. Vexall himself, a veteran of countless hostile worlds. Crete, their communications and tactical officer. Dr. Zindar, a xenobiologist who had cataloged over 10,000 lethal species. Sergeant Maltek, whose exoskeleton had deflected plasma bursts from crystal spiders. And Navigator Yulson, who had guided them through the reality-bending storms of the Void Nebula. Their equipment was minimal. By design, standard energy shields, atmospheric processors, basic survival gear. The message to the galaxy was clear. Earth was so harmless that elite Zephyrian Marines needed nothing more than vacation supplies, that the transport touched down in what their orbital scans had identified as a low-threat temperate zone. A meadow. In the North American territory, humans called Montana. Rolling hills stretched towards snow-capped mountains. Wildflowers dotted the grassland, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of growing things. Birds sang in nearby trees. A crystal clear stream bubbled peacefully 50 meters away. Atmospheric composition confirmed safe, reported Dr. Zindar, checking his instruments. No toxic gases, no radiation, no magnetic anomalies. Temperature a comfortable 22 degrees Celsius. This is almost disappointingly easy. Vexall stepped onto the soft grass, his clawed feet sinking slightly into the loamy soil. Perfect. We'll establish base camp here, then demonstrate various survival techniques. The viewers will see how laughably simple life is on this primitive world. The recording drone captured their confident preparations as they assembled their drone. Basic shelter, a translucent dome that would provide protection from the elements while maintaining visibility for the broadcast. Crete began setting up the communication array while Moltak performed a routine perimeter scan. No predators detected within 2 kilometers, the sergeant announced. The largest life form appears to be some kind of quadruped herbivore, probably. Those brown creatures grazing near the tree line. Deer, corrected Dr. Zindar, consulting his cultural database. Harmless plant eaters. The humans actually consider them pests because they eat their cultivated vegetation. Vexall laughed, a sound like grinding crystals. Imagine a world so peaceful that the worst problem is animals eating your gardens. Our descendants will vacation here while the parents work the uranium mines of Hadron 7. The first hour passed exactly as planned. They demonstrated water purification techniques with the stream, identified edible plants, and showed their audience how to construct basic tools from local materials. The drone captured sweeping shots of the serene landscape while the team explained how different this was from their usual survival scenarios. Notice the absence of predatory plants. Vexall pointed to a cluster of yellow flowers. No acid-secreting vines, no carnivorous root systems, no photosynthetic creatures that explode when disturbed. These simply exist. They photosynthesize. Sunlight into energy. Revolutionary concept. But as they worked, none of them noticed the tiny winged creatures beginning to gather around their energy signatures. The mosquitoes were just starting to wake up from their daytime rest, and the aliens' bioelectrical fields were sending out dinner invitations across the meadow. The nightmare was about to begin. Asterisk. The first sign of trouble came as Dr. Zindar was explaining Earth's remarkably stable ecosystem to the galactic audience. A small, dark speck landed on his exposed neck just below his breathing apparatus. He absently brushed it away, continuing his commentary about the planet's refreshingly predictable weather patterns. The atmospheric conditions here are so stable that locals engage in recreational activities called camping, where they voluntarily sleep outdoors with minimal protection. He explained to the drone. No radiation shielding, no pressure suits, no armed escorts. They actually consider this enjoyable. Another speck landed on his arm, then another. Within minutes, dozens of tiny flying creatures had discovered the team. The mosquitoes found the aliens' bioelectrical signatures irresistible, like a beacon calling every blood-hungry insect within kilometers. Curious, Dr. Zindar muttered, examining one of the creatures through his portable microscope. These appear to be some kind of biological extraction device. They have a proboscis designed to penetrate skin and draw fluids. The first bite sent shockwaves through the team's communication system. Dr. Zindar's agonized screech echoed across the meadow as something far worse than pain lanced through his nervous system. The mosquito's saliva contained anticoagulants and proteins that his immune system had never encountered. Defensive positions, Vexal commanded, raising his energy shield. But the tiny creatures simply flew through the electromagnetic barrier as if it didn't exist. The shield was designed to stop plasma bolts and projectile weapons, not biological entities the size of dust motes. Within minutes, the elite team that had fought crystal spiders and survived acid rain was being overwhelmed by insects. The mosquitoes seemed to multiply exponentially, drawn by the aliens' carbon dioxide and heat signatures. Their bites triggered cascading allergic reactions that the team's medical nanobots couldn't counter. "Sir," gasped Lieutenant Creek H., her exoskeleton crawling with the tiny attackers. "Their biological weapons are adapting faster than our medical systems can respond. Each bite introduces new toxins." Sergeant Moltak attempted to use his flame projector, but the dispersed insects simply scattered and regrouped. For every dozen he destroyed, hundreds more arrived. The team's confidence began to crack as they realized their advanced weapons were useless against enemies too small to target effectively. "Status report," Vexahal demanded through gritted teeth, his own skin welting from dozens of bites. "The insects are using some kind of coordination protocol," Dr. Zindar reported, his voice strained. "They're communicating chemically, sharing information about our defenses. They've identified the gaps in our armor and are exploiting them systematically." Navigator Yulson, who had guided them through reality-bending storms, was reduced to frantically swatting at creatures no larger than his fingernail. "Commander, I recommend immediate tactical withdrawal. These biological weapons are more sophisticated than anything we've encountered." But retreat meant acknowledging failure in front of 40 billion viewers. The Zephyrian Collective's reputation for adaptation and survival was at stake. Vexahol gritted his teeth and pressed forward. "Negative. We adapt and overcome. Dr. Zindar, what countermeasures do you recommend?" The xenobiologist frantically consulted his equipment while brushing insects from his instruments. "The creatures seem to be tracking our heat signatures and electrical fields. If we can reduce our bioelectrical output and lower our body temperature, we might His words were cut off as the team encountered their second adversary. Kreeth had sought shelter against a tree and was now stumbling backward, her left arm covered in angry red welts that hadn't been there moments before. "The plant," she gasped. "The plant is secreting some kind of contact poison." Dr. Zinda's scanner went wild as he analyzed the innocent-looking vine. Uracila complex organic compound that triggers delayed immunological responses. It's designed to punish any creature that touches it, creating a lasting deterrent effect. The poison ivy was spreading its influence through the team's equipment. Every surface they touched became contaminated. Their tools, their shelter, their communication array, all of it was becoming toxic to them. How do the humans survive this? Moltak wondered aloud, his voice tight with pain. "They don't just survive," Yulson observed grimly, checking his scanners. "According to the orbital surveys, they actively seek out these environments. They call it hiking and camping. They bring their offspring." The realization hit the team like a physical blow. The humans weren't just tolerating this hostile environment, they were thriving in it. Children, the most vulnerable members of any species, were regularly exposed to biological weapons that were devastating trained galactic marines. As the second hour began, the team huddled in their compromised shelter, covered in insect bites and poison ivy rashes, and began to suspect that their easy mode survival mission had been a catastrophic miscalculation. The third hour brought the team's meteorological equipment, had assured them was impossible. A complete atmospheric upheaval that their instruments hadn't detected until it was directly overhead. The sky, which had been a peaceful blue dome, just minutes before, transformed into a churning mass of black clouds that seemed to materialize from nowhere. "Emergency weather alert," Navigator Yulson announced, his voice tight with disbelief. "Massive electrical storm approaching from the west. Our atmospheric processors show this is impossible. The barometric pressure has dropped 40%. In 12 minutes. Dr. Zindar, still frantically treating his poison ivy exposure, looked up from his scanner. "The electromagnetic readings are off the charts. This storm is generating more electrical energy than the plasma storms of Korath Prime." Commander Vexhall watched the approaching wall of darkness with growing alarm. His team had weathered Ion, storms that could strip flesh from bone, survived the methane hurricanes of gas giants, and endured the reality-warping tempests of the Void Nebula. But those had been predictable, their patterns analyzable. This Earth weather system was behaving like a living entity, adapting and changing faster than their instruments could track. The first lightning strike hit the ground 50 meters away, sending a shockwave through their shelter. The electromagnetic pulse fried half their equipment instantly. The second strike was closer. The third seemed to be hunting them. "The electrical discharge is following our energy signatures," Lieutenant Creed H. reported, her voice barely audible over the rising wind. "It's as if the storm is actively targeting us." Thunder crashed overhead with a sound like reality tearing. The team, who had faced down crystal spiders and survived the screaming winds of metal worlds, found themselves cowering in their shelter as the sky itself seemed to declare war on their presence. Then came the rain. The first drops felt like liquid, hammers against their shelter. Within seconds, the gentle shower had become a torrential assault that threatened to collapse their temporary dome. The water found every microscopic gap in their equipment, shorting out systems that had been designed to function in the vacuum of space. "Water infiltration in all systems," Sergeant Moltak reported. "Our gear is rated for total submersion, but this is different. The water is somehow more corrosive than standard H2O. Dr. Zindar managed to get a reading on the precipitation. It's not corrosive, it's alive. The water is carrying microorganisms, minerals, and organic compounds that are interacting with our equipment in ways we never anticipated. The storm intensified as if responding to their presence. Wind speeds that had been manageable suddenly jumped to hurricane force. Their shelter, rated to withstand the pressure differentials of deep space, began to buckle under the assault. Temperature dropping rapidly, Yulson announced. We're losing thermal regulation. The atmospheric processors can't compensate for this rate of change. In the span of 20 minutes, the temperature plummeted from a comfortable 22 degrees Celsius to near freezing. The team's heat-adapted physiology, evolved for the warm environments of their homeworld, began to shut down. Their movements became sluggish, their thinking clouded. How is this possible? Vexhahel demanded through chattering teeth. The orbital surveys showed stable weather patterns. The humans live through this regularly? Sir, Creed managed to say, her voice weak. I'm monitoring human communication frequencies. There's a family approximately 2 kilometers from our position. They single quotes read ... They're discussing whether to start a campfire or wait for the storm to pass. The team stared at each other in stunned silence. While they were fighting for survival against weather that was overwhelming their advanced technology, humans were treating it as a minor inconvenience. They're not just surviving, Dr. Zindar observed weakly. They're treating this as entertainment. I'm detecting elevated stress hormones, but also satisfaction. They're enjoying this. The storm reached its peak as the third hour ended. Lightning struck their shelter directly, sending feedback through their remaining systems. The electromagnetic pulse was so intense that it temporarily disrupted their neural implants, leaving them disoriented and partially blind in the chaos of flashing lights and deafening thunder. Sergeant Mole Tack made a discovery that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. His scanner, somehow still functioning despite the electromagnetic assault, detected movement in the storm. "Commander," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind, "there's something else out there. Multiple life forms moving through the storm. Large ones." Through the flashing lightning, they caught glimpses of massive shapes moving through the trees. The storm hadn't driven Earth's predators into hiding, it had awakened them. And they were hungry. "Sir," Yulson said quietly, "I'm reading movement patterns consistent with coordinated hunting behavior. Whatever's out there, it's not random. They're using the storm as cover." The realization hit the team like a physical blow. The storm wasn't just a weather phenomenon, it was part of Earth's ecosystem. The predators had evolved to hunt during these electrical tempests, using the chaos as camouflage, while their prey sought shelter. As the fourth hour began, the team huddled in their failing shelter, surrounded by creatures that treated apocalyptic weather as hunting season, and began to understand why humans had earned the grudging respect of every species that had ever encountered them. The fourth hour brought a horrifying revelation that shattered the team's understanding of planetary ecosystems. As the electrical storm began to subside, Dr. Zindar's scanners detected something that made his blood freeze. The creatures moving through the tempest weren't seeking shelter, they were coordinating. "Commander," he whispered, his voice trembling as he stared at the readings, "these aren't random predators. They're hunting in formation. The storm isn't hindering them, it's part of their strategy." Through the clearing rain, the team caught their first glimpse of Earth's true predators. A pack of wolves had positioned themselves strategically around the aliens' failing shelter, their movements synchronized with military precision. Their eyes reflected the dying lightning as they communicated through sounds that the team's translation software couldn't interpret. "Impossible," Sergeant Moltack breathed. "They're using pack intelligence, coordinated tactics. These aren't primitive animals, they're conducting a siege." Navigator Yulson, the scanner, picked up additional movement. "Multiple species, Commander. large felines stalking from the tree line, aerial predators circling overhead, and something else ... double quotes. His voice trailed off as he checked his readings twice. There's a massive ursine creature approaching from the north, mass approximately 400 kilograms. The bear that shambled into their clearing wasn't just large, it was a living weapons platform. Its claws were longer than Zephyrian combat blades, its jaw structure designed to crush bone, and its movement patterns suggested intelligence that their xenobiological databases had never recorded. How do they coexist? Lieutenant Creeth asked, in amazement, watching the predators position themselves with tactical precision. Multiple apex predators, overlapping territories, competing for resources. This should result in ecosystem collapse. Dr. Zindar's analysis provided an answer that defied everything they knew about planetary biology. They're not competing, they're collaborating. The storm creates opportunities for communal hunting. Each species has adapted to complement the other's strengths. The wolves had speed and coordination. The mountain lion provided stealth and vertical mobility. The bear brought raw power and intimidation. The circling ravens served as aerial reconnaissance, their calls alerting the terrestrial predators to the aliens' movements. This is beyond sophisticated, Vexahol observed, his tactical training recognizing the patterns. They've developed interspecies military cooperation. The storm doesn't scatter them, it activates a coordinated response. The aliens' energy weapons, so effective against the crystal spiders of distant worlds, were nearly useless against creatures that moved unpredictably through natural cover. Every shot revealed their position while barely slowing their adversaries. "Sir," Moltak reported, his voice strained, "I'm munition at 60%. These creatures absorb energy discharge better than armored combat units. Their hide density and muscle mass distribution is extraordinary." The bear chose that moment to demonstrate why Earth's predators had earned their reputation. It approached their shelter with casual confidence, then stood upright, revealing its true massive size, and began systematically dismantling their defenses with claws that could rend metal. Defensive positions. Vexhall commanded, but his team was already learning the futility of fighting Earth's ecosystem with conventional tactics. The wolves struck first, their coordinated assault overwhelming the aliens' ability to track multiple targets. The mountain lion attacked from above, using tree branches as launching platforms. The bear simply absorbed their defensive fire and continued its methodical destruction of their equipment. "They're using the environment as a weapon," Yulson observed in growing horror. "Every tree, every rock, every terrain feature has been incorporated into their hunting strategy." But the true nightmare came when Dr. Zindar's scanners detected something that made his worst fears pale in comparison: human presence. "Commander," he whispered, "there's a human approaching from the eastern ridge. Single individual, juvenile by the bio-readings, moving directly toward the predator convergence." The team watched in stunned silence as a teenage human no older than a Zephyrian cadet walked calmly through the gathering of apex predators. The wolves acknowledged the human with brief tail movements before returning to their positions. The mountain lion vanished into the trees. The bear dropped to all fours and ambled away. They're not hunting the human," Creed H. observed. In disbelief, they're deferring to it. The teenager approached their shelter with casual confidence, seemingly unaware that moments before, the area had been a tactical nightmare of coordinated predators. The human examined their damaged equipment with curiosity, then pulled out a small device and began making sounds into it. "It's communicating," Dr. Zindar realized, calling for assistance. Within minutes, more humans arrived, adults and children, moving through the post-storm landscape with the same casual confidence that had allowed them to walk through a gathering of predators. They seemed genuinely concerned about the aliens' welfare, offering assistance in their primitive but effective way. Sir, Yulson said quietly, they're not just surviving this ecosystem. They're integrated into it. Predators recognize them as the apex species. The realization hit the team like a physical blow. Earth wasn't a vacation planet. It was a proving ground that had forged the most adaptable, resilient, and creatively violent species in the galaxy. The humans hadn't conquered their environment through technology. They had evolved to become its ultimate expression. As the fifth hour began, the team faced a choice: continue their doomed mission or accept the humbling truth that they had encountered something beyond their understanding, a species that had turned survival into an art form. The fifth hour began with a revelation that shattered every assumption the Zephyrian Collective had made about planetary conquest. As the human family approached their failing shelter, offering assistance with genuine concern, Commander Vexol's tactical computers performed calculations that defied military logic. Analysis complete, Dr. Zindar announced, his voice hollow with disbelief. The humans aren't just surviving in this environment, they're thriving because of it. Every challenge we faced is routine for them. The insects, the poisonous plants, the weather, the predators, they've weaponized their entire ecosystem through adaptation. The teenage human who had dispersed the predator pack was now examining their shelter with the casual expertise of someone who understood advanced technology. Without being asked, the youth began repairing their communication array using primitive tools and what appeared to be salvaged components from their own equipment. How? Lieutenant Kreeth whispered, watching the human work. We've studied their technology. They're centuries behind us in materials science, energy manipulation, computational systems. Yet this juvenile is fixing equipment that our engineers designed. The answer came from an unexpected source. The human family's youngest member, a child who couldn't have been more than 10 standard years old, approached Dr. Zindar's medical scanner with curiosity. Within minutes, the child had identified the malfunction that had been confounding their xenobiologist for hours. Pattern recognition, Sergeant Moltak observed in amazement. They're not using our technology, they're understanding it. Their neural architecture is adapted for rapid problem-solving under pressure. Navigator Yulzen's scanners provided the final piece of the puzzle. Sir, their stress hormone levels are elevated, but not in the way we'd expect. They're not experiencing fear or panic. They're experiencing excitement. They're enjoying this. The human family was treating the aliens' crisis as an interesting challenge. The parents worked together to stabilize their shelter, while the children explored their equipment with the fearless curiosity of beings who had never encountered a truly safe environment. They're not brave, Vexol realized. They're adapted. What we consider lethal threats, they consider normal environmental conditions. They've evolved in a world where everything is dangerous, so they've learned to find opportunity in chaos. The true scope of their miscalculation became clear as the human family shared their own survival supplies. Food that would sustain them through multi-day expeditions in this hostile environment. Water purification methods that required no technology. Shelter designs that could withstand the electrical storms. Medical supplies that could treat the biological weapons they called bug bites and poison ivy. Sir, Kreeth said quietly, they're not just offering aid. They're teaching us. They genuinely believe we can learn to survive here. The alien situation became critical as their equipment continued failing. The electromagnetic pulse from the storm had damaged their transportation beacon, leaving them stranded until they could establish communication with their ship. The medical nanobots were struggling to cope with the cumulative effects of insect toxins, plant poisons, and stress reactions. Commander, Dr. Zindar reported, our biological systems are shutting down. We need immediate medical evacuation. Vexol faced the most difficult decision of his military career. The broadcast was still active, though intermittent. 40 billion viewers across the galaxy were watching the elite Zephyrian Marines being rescued by the primitive species they had come to study. "Activate emergency protocols," he ordered. Full evacuation. The emergency beacon cut through Earth's atmosphere like a scream for help. The response was immediate. Their ship's medical team began emergency transport procedures, while the bridge crew calculated the fastest possible evacuation route. But the humans, misunderstanding the situation, began implementing their own rescue protocols. The teenage human who had repaired their communication array was already coordinating with what appeared to be a planetary emergency response network. Within minutes, primitive but effective aircraft were approaching their position. "They think we're in distress," Yulson observed. "They're launching a rescue operation." The final irony came as the Zephyrian medical team materialized in the meadow. Their advanced equipment, designed to handle the most exotic alien physiologies, was supplemented by human medical supplies that proved more effective against Earth's biological weapons than their own technology. "Sir," the chief medical officer reported, "their primitive remedies are actually more effective than our standard treatments. They've developed specific countermeasures for every biological threat we've encountered." As the team was evacuated to their ship, they caught their final glimpse of Earth's true nature. The human family was already preparing to spend the night in the same meadow where trained galactic Marines had nearly died. The children were collecting firewood while the parents set up sleeping arrangements in the open air. "They're going to sleep outside," Maltak observed in amazement, "voluntarily, with minimal protection." The broadcast ended as the transport ship cleared Earth's atmosphere, leaving behind a world that had redefined their understanding of survival, adaptation, and the true meaning of strength. Hours later, as the team recovered in the ship's medical bay, they received a message from a human family. The teenage human had repaired their communication array well enough to send a brief transmission. "Hope you had fun camping. Come back anytime." Commander Vexall stared at the message for a long time before filing his report. The Zephyrian Collective's first contact with humanity would be remembered not as a conquest, but as a lesson in humility from a species that had turned a death world into a home. The final entry in his log read, "Earth is not a primitive world. It is a forge that has created the most adaptable species in the galaxy. Recommend immediate reclassification from vacation planet to strategic partnership opportunity." The humans don't just survive impossible conditions. They've learned to love them. We have much to learn from their approach to existence. The story that was supposed to demonstrate Zephyrian superiority had instead revealed the true meaning of evolution, not the conquest of environment, but harmony with it. Earth had taught them that the most dangerous species in the galaxy might also be the most valuable allies, if they could prove worthy of their friendship. End of story.